gone live, but today I want to talk about something that happened on Saturday. We were doing injury screen here at the PhysioFix in Phoenix. Just we work. We have a little relationship with a local youth soccer club, and periodically kids can sign up for some time slots on Saturday mornings, and they come on over to our clinic slash gym and talk to us about some things that have been bothering them, and we take them through some basic, screening kind of movements and exercises, and just give them an idea of what could be going on, and set up some planning if they want to take care of any pain, injuries, symptoms with us. And I worked with a couple of younger male soccer players. I think one of them was almost 12 and the other one was 13. And both of them were having some knee discomfort. And when we were taking them through just kind of normal screening stuff, you start to see things like a lot of stiffness in the anterior part of the thigh, a lot of issues showing strength and control in basic movement patterns like squats, lunges, single leg, standing even. And and I just wanted to bring up a point when we're talking about youth athletics. Um, a lot of a lot of these clubs, they're going to play 50 games in a club season, something to that effect. There's a lot of soccer games, and they're going to play multiple games on a weekend, sometimes, not all the time, and they're going to have practices 5 to 7 hours a week, and depending on what's going on with their competition schedule. So what you end up seeing is a lot of time being dedicated to lots and lots of soccer, but not a lot of time being dedicated to just basics of strength and conditioning. And boys and girls, but I just happened to be working with two boys that weekend. So I'm kind of like hedging that way just a little bit. This applies both ways. Um, they're kind of starting to get to that perfect age for us to start working on some of the basics of strength and conditioning. And I don't care if they only want to play soccer at that age. If they're 13, 14, and a kid is very motivated, self-driven to play soccer most of the year at the expense of other sports, that's fine. But one thing they should not be skipping, they should be making time for, is strength and conditioning basics, because they're they're weak, and I mean that. um, I don't know how to, in the best possible way. We'll put it that way. They're untrained, and and you see it in how they move during the things that we're taking them through. And so what ends up happening is they're trying to layer these real complex, intense skills on top of a frame that's undersized, and on top of muscularity that's immature and coordination that's not developed. And so the main things at that age are getting them to understand that we've got to start broadening your base level of general strength. And the problem that we run into with these groups, especially when they're club related, is everything is based around soccer, and then any training that they do outside of soccer is geared towards being specific to soccer. And what ends up happening is these kids just spend the extra time they have doing these like agility camps or things of that nature, like this I don't know what they call it down here, like one percenters or something like that. And not that these things are inherently bad, but what ends up happening is kids at this age, they really can't progress those kinds of things because they're so baseline untrained and uncoordinated and just generally weak muscularly. So what ends up happening is they hit these they hit these big ceilings quickly on how much they can progress through things like speed improvement, change of direction improvement, because they're not strong enough to handle the forces and loads that you need to consistently coordinate and progress high level um, speed and agility work. Hello to everyone that keeps saying hi. So we end up in these issues where a kid becomes they're trying to make them faster and more agile without making them stronger. And you can't build those other things without that general foundation of strength. So we had these discussions with some of the parents that brought their kids in saying, we it's not that they have to do that here. There's a lot of places you can go, but we have very qualified staff at our office at the PhysioFix to work with these kinds of things. And if you wanted to get some little groups together of some of the boys on your team and bring them over here, then we could start working on helping them develop that general base strength that is going to be necessary for them to really get the most out of some of those other things that they're doing. And it's also going to help save them from having these nagging issues that they're all having around, some knee discomfort, some foot and ankle discomfort, and we how much more agile can you make a kid that can't stand on one leg for more than a few seconds? Not very. And so we run to a lot of these other things with just around basics of balance and coordination, which have a foundation of just general strength underlying them. You can't have proper balance if you don't have muscular strength. You can't have good coordination without having some general levels of muscular strength. And it started to make a lot of sense to the kids and the parents, like, hey, soccer's great. Your soccer club's great. You guys are playing a lot of soccer. That's fine. That's neither here nor there. But if you want to support that level of soccer, then you're going to need to start working on some of these other basic things. And it doesn't even take that much. We can take these 12, 13, 14-year-old boys and girls and have them in our clinic gym area for 2 times a week for 45 minutes each time and make tremendous improvements in their general levels of muscular strength and coordination in a few weeks, that they will notice almost immediately that they're getting more from their agility training and that they're getting more from and they're performing better in their soccer. So just some easy things to work on, and if they can drive up those general strength and conditioning, then we're going to likely talk to them less often about these kind of sub-injury symptomatic problems that they're dealing with, that a lot of kids in those age ranges deal with as they're growing. Knee pain, ankle pain, especially like around the heel. Those are very common in those start-stop sports as people are going through maturity, and they're it's you can do a lot to mitigate those problems by developing these levels of strength and coordination. So if you've got kids in those age ranges that are deep into some kind of club sport and are not in some sort of strength and conditioning program, you need to make sure that you investigate that, find some people in your area that are very uh, skilled and can do that kind of work properly, and chase that. And you'll notice a big difference within a few months of the kids out in the field that are consistently pursuing improvements in their base strength and conditioning, those who are not. So it's enough for today. Check us out at the Physio Fix in Phoenix. See you later.